Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Voice check. All right, this is a little bit different because getting set up, they changed OBS and YouTube, and I'm not showing anything on where you're supposed to set up, but I seem to see it on the regular YouTube. So I guess you guys can hear me? Okay. Well, what is it Sheldon Cooper always says? Change is bad. That's why one reason I want to get an early setup today, because I knew they've been changing stuff around, but maybe they did actually make it better. I don't know. We'll know in a little bit. Okay. Let me get some, whoops, get some of the clutter out of the way without knocking everything over. Alrighty. Well, okay. Real quick camera check. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. I should have appeared by now. So something isn't right. Oh, good Lord. That's like a 20-second lag time. Let me try that again. 1 potato, 2 potato, 3 potato. 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, 6,000, 7,000, 8,000, 9,000, 10,000, 11,000, 12,000, 13,000, embarrassing thousand, 14 to 15,000. Okay, so we're running on a 15-second lag, which means when I say something, it'll be about 15 seconds before it shows up on my screen, which I assume is how long it takes it to show up on your screen. So there may be quite a bit of a lag between stuff. Well, if you guys will pardon me for a minute, I'm going to go christen a new bottle of Maker's Mark, and we'll be on our way. Didn't have time to make a video this morning, but I'll talk about that in a little bit. Almost ready to be there in a minute. Okay, looks like we're just about on time here. Alrighty, let's turn this off, this on, move that out of the way, and we're off. And I forgot to comb my hair. Oh well, you guys can deal with it. How's everybody doing tonight out there in Tarbis land, YouTube world, whatever we want to call it? I have to come up with a name with this. Oh, and salud. Not tea. Okay, I'm going to take a little bit of adjustment for me. I've got one window, which is the software where it's all in real time. And then 15 seconds later, which is the biggest lag I think I've ever had, it's happening over on the YouTube channel. So that's right, Ipanema. Well, there was my sound check. uh, well, guys, it's glad to see everybody. Daryl, Trey, Lance, Diane, welcome aboard. Seemingly catch you as a Tim. Good, good, good. Travis, good to see you. Okay, guys. Bill, Raymond. Hey, Jeff. Great, great, great. Let's see. So many cool things to talk about. And I'm afraid to touch that other screen. So, this is not giving me any metrics, but that's okay. I don't need to know how many people are watching. I'll talk even when I'm talking to myself. So, manage moderation. This thing is all it's all different now, and different is bad. Okay, you got to turn that just a little bit. I'm setting up got the microphone in a different place. As long as you guys can hear me okay. What to begin with? Well, for starters, let's talk about the book that I have up here, Across the Airless Wilds. This was sent to me by Mr. Irick. This book is about the development of the Lunar rover and the last 3 Apollo missions that used it. Now, I'm a big Apollo guy, so I was already familiar with a lot of stuff. I've actually been in the building at Huntsville where they built the rovers, and they were bragging about how perfectly smooth and flat the floor was. And one of the reasons I thought I'd talk about this, other than I've been reading the book, about 80 pages into it, is that I don't know if you guys know this, but obviously the Lunar rover was made to work in lunar gravity. So if you drove a real, honest-to-God lunar rover on the ground, it would pretty much collapse after a short distance. It only weighs about 80 pounds on the moon, but it's hundreds of pounds on Earth. But I have never seen a decent kit of the Lunar rover. There are kits of it out there. But one of the problems is the tires on the thing, if you want to call them tires, the wheels, are this super fine mesh wrapped around these really light components. And when you look at it, you can see through. You can tell it's a mesh. But there's really no way to mimic that at scale. There isn't a material that'll properly mimic it, at least not one that isn't so, it would basically have to be cloth, and one that would be so gossamer thin that it'd hold its shape. And it got me wondering about stuff that we use to, when we're modeling, that we use to mimic other materials. Classic one, of course, is sailing ships. They have the sails, or the yards, and a lot of times, people use plastic, or they'll shape paper, because if you try to use real cloth, it's too thick, because a lot of things don't scale. Air doesn't scale, water doesn't scale, which is, of course, trouble for movie makers. They have to make really huge models if they want to get that froth that a big ship kicks up. And even then, you can sort of tell us one of the biggest problems with the models in the old movies is, you see the ship fly by, and it looks like, go by, and you're like, oh, it looks like my bathtub, because it's more or less what it is. And a lot of things don't scale, and materials like cloth and stuff don't scale very well. Cotton looks good on us if we put on a cotton shirt, but if you build a model, if you make a big 112 figure and use this actual material of the shirt, it's going to be too thick. That makes figures hard to do accurately. That's why sometimes figures look better when they're made out of resin. And I was just kind of wondering what some of you guys' favorite tricks were for mimicking things in the real world. For me, I often use cotton to mimic smoke, which is pretty common. It's kind of diorama 101. And of course, Shep Payne, who invented a lot of techniques and wrote books on it, had a lot of great ideas. But we have more materials now than we had even when he was his heyday. And you look at some of the dioramas that come now, especially the ocean-going dioramas, and they're really impressive. Some of the new materials that catch the frothiness of the water, and people will pour these gels, and I've seen submarines display that were in a tank, and they would fill it with something that hardened with the submarine down in it. So when you look at it, the submarine's completely submerged in this rock solid gel, but it looks good because it was so thin and translucent, and it firmed up so well. So there's just all kinds of cool stuff, and just kind of curious what a lot of you guys used as your your go-to. If I want to simulate water, if I want to simulate fabric on a uniform or something like that, what some of you guys favored things were to do. And hey, Steve. Uh, that was. Oh, there was something he'd meant. I'll wait till a few more people says. Well, you know what? Let's go ahead and put it up. There's something I forgot to add here, and I just downloaded it. I mean, I was Okay, before I get into that, I was working on the Caterham, which we're going to talk about later, and I completely lost track of time. My wife and I started watching something called Cowboy Bebop. I don't know if any of you are familiar with it. I'm sure some of you are. And the it's a it's kind of a weird mix of 50s film noir and Firefly, but it had been recommended to me, and I decided to give it a try. And I'm not really into the anime, so which I know the hardcore like, oh, you got to read the anime first. But it's interesting. Got John Cho from Mr. Sulu from the modern Star Trek movies. Anyway, I because of the holidays, we had family over. In fact, they just left, and we were watching a couple episodes of that. And I was like, I need to go get to work on my models, so she had to go work on her dolls, and she did a beautiful job of Snape from the Harry Potter, and I believe how lifelike she makes those things a little scary sometimes. But anyway, I got going on the Caterham, and I was having all kinds of problems we're going to talk about later. And I looked down, it was, I was like, holy crap, it's already 6:30, so I'm diving through hoops to throw this thing together. So it's not going to be a whole lot of imagery today. But one of the things I've been wondering about, because I'm working on also that sailing ship provided Buddy Donovan, which comes with the big plastic sails, which are probably what I'll use because it's just going to go up on his shelf. I was like, there's all kinds of stuff. And then I was reading this book that I still have up here. I'm not trying to promote the book. I just thought it was the stuff I've been reading, and it was pretty cool. And I was just thinking, there are all kinds of tricks to make stuff. And I was just wondering what you guys do when you have to make various things. And I'll probably get back to reading the comments in more detail later. By the way, a quick note about this book before I disappear it here. I didn't realize, I knew they experimented with a lot of stuff, but I didn't realize how early lunar rover research went back. Believe it or not, a vehicle on the moon research goes back to like the turn of the last century. The very earliest, scientists were talking about someday we'll go to the moon and we'll need a vehicle to drive. And we're talking about over 100 years ago, they were already talking about this. And as recently as like 1935, there were some scientists that were actually already working on the problem just out of curiosity. But I didn't realize how specific some of the research that was done in the 1930s, 40s, and 50s before we were even talking about putting a man on the moon was in this particular area. I also didn't realize how specific that terrain locomotion was, that there were entire committee groups of scientists that in various countries that were dedicated to ways to get across terrain, never mind Luraine, which I think is the technical name for the lunar surface, because terra, terrain, Luna, moon, Luraine. Anyway, point being, it made me realize that things like when you're building tracks on a tank or the wheels on a car, on an off-road vehicle, there was more science behind that stuff than I had appreciated before. So that was interesting. Okay, enough of that. Let me see if I can real quick find what I was going to talk about here in a little bit. I just downloaded the image. Hopefully it's here. I had the pleasure of being asked if I would consider being a judge at a car show, a model car show. Okay, I know I downloaded it. I didn't put it there. Oh, great. Where did it go? Oh, boy. Okay. Genius Max went ahead and downloaded something, and it was on a PDF file. And now I don't know where I sent it. Okay. I'm going to have to open that up real quick. Wait a minute. Paste. Nope, nothing. Okay, this is going to take just a second here. Let me... Sorry about this, guys. I must have gotten stopped before I saved the image. Okay, there it is. I'm going to do this old school. I'm just... you know what? No, I'm not. I'm going to... I don't know if you guys are familiar with a place called Deezerland, but it's Deezerland Park in Orlando. But January 22 through 23, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., there's going to be a, I guess it's a model car contest. And I was invited to be one of the judges. And I was like, well, that's okay, sure. That'll be a new experience. Let me just crop this real quick. Sorry, I thought I had saved the image. I must have gotten sidetracked. Me? You get distracted? No. What are the odds? Okay. Okay. Don't run around closing stuff. You're liable to shut down the live stream by accident, you dummy. Here we go. Okay, so I can close that. Okay, browse. I still proudly have the lowest production values on the internet. I wear that badge with honor. Okay, there it is. This is a promo that's come out for it. Model car kit contest at Deezerland Orlando Park, January 23, 23, 10 to 4. So I'm going to make sure I get that time off. It is a weekend, and I hope that I know the guys are still putting together. I'm not giving out any names unless they tell me to, because I don't want to spoil anything. But obviously I won't be entering anything in it because I'll be a judge, and plus hopefully I have no idea what the prizes are going to be. If they're just going to be little trophies, or maybe they'll have some giveaways. I know they're trying to get some sponsorship from some model companies, and that may happen too, and that'd be nice if it did. It's always nice to have a little official recognition from officialdom. So I'm just going to leave this window up while we talk about other things. And speaking of museum, Deezerland apparently has a car museum. I didn't even know they were there. That's how out of touch I am with what's going around me. I go to work in Orlando, and there's so much in Orlando that I don't even know about. And this is a place I'm going to have to go to before that just to see it, because it's cool. And there are videos out there. I'll see if I can put a link on this to one that was sent to me. But yeah, Trey, it'd be great to see you there. I hope you can enter something. As I understand it, the initial thought was, hey, let's have them buy the models from the gift shop and build them there. I'm like, yeah, you don't just build a competition kit model car in a day or two, guys. Yeah, that's the wiser heads prevailed. Like, no, they're going to have to bring stuff already made. But I don't know. Maybe they'll have some kits for prizes or something. We'll see. All I know is I was asked. I don't know anything else about it at this point. But as information comes my way, I'll let you guys know, because, I just think it's cool. The problem I'm going to have is, my motto about keeping this fun. I don't judge people's builds. I don't care, like the viewers' builds. I'll whatever you guys send me, if it's what you're building, I'll put it on the viewers' build, because it's not a competition. It's a chance for us to showcase to everybody, hey, this is what we're doing. And but if I judge models, I'm going to actually have to say, yeah, that guy's better than that guy. And I just don't want to make anybody feel, oh man, because building models is supposed to make you feel good. It's not supposed to be a downer. As we remind ourselves every time we are searching the carpet monster, or trying to mask off 1/72 scale decals or canopies. Speaking of which, a lot of you guys had I was surprised how many people took an interest in that DC3 I'm building. So let me show you what's going on with the DC3 right now. I did decide to put the de-icing boots on it. That's me taping it off today to put it on. Now the model is painted in acrylics and covered with clear lacquer, but I wanted the de-icing boots to be made with a lacquer. Now it's a lacquer clear coat. So of course, no matter how I did clear coat it, after I sealed it, but there's always some leakage. The nothing I can't clean up. But I just thought the airplane looked a little too plain Jane and blasé without anything on it, because the person I make it for said, yeah, they didn't want any airline livery. They just wanted a basic DC-3. I just felt it needed something to help it pop. I still have to do the tail. Unfortunately, it wasn't. I had to put the lacquer on a little heavy, and some of it seeped in. Nothing I can't clean up, but I think it definitely looks better with the black leading edges, just to add some kind of pop to it. And some folks sent me a lot of stuff on the DC-3 recently when I talked about building this, and actually some of those images came in handy. Not a bad kit, but typical of a lot of kits. The minute you want to make it differently than the people who designed, I want to make it wheels up instead of wheels down, all of a sudden you're into your own kind of engineering to figure out how to make that work, because it just wasn't set up to be that way. And but again, all part of model building, right? But when I get those boots cleaned up, get the tail done, you'll notice I made the elevator a different color. I wanted to shade it some for the cloth surfaces. I pre-shaded the ailerons, but that new to me aluminum paint covered it up and made a pretty uniform color on the wing. I was like, pre-shading's more for the airbrush, I guess. But anyway, I think they'll be happy with it. I was going to make spinny props for it and leave them the regular propellers as an option, but I couldn't find anything to make prop hubs out of, and so I figure I'll probably just give it to them with the stationary propellers. So, does age of builder factor into judging? I have no idea. I don't think so. I know they have different categories for builders at some places. I don't know how many people are going to show up for this thing, and I'm not really involved in organizing it, so it might just be, one category, hey, build your car and put it on display, or they may have young people, old people. But to my knowledge, I don't think there's going to be categories, but Steve here can give you a lot of information on it, and I hope you guys, as many of you are in the area, can make it. It'd be great. And I'm just excited about the opportunity to go down there and see the museum and see the model, see what everybody's up to. And I know me, though, I'm going to have guilt about, but he tried so hard. There's a thumbprint across the hood, like we've never done that ourselves. So anyway, but it should be great fun, and I am really looking forward to it. Bourbon. Good. Let's see. Now, let's talk about the Caterham. This car is starting to look like a car now. And, ooh, boy, do I have some stories to share with you today. One thing I will tell you, if you watch the very first video I did, when I put the very first parts together on this, which was the front steering assembly, the rack and pinion, it went together without any argument. And the first parts of the car were absolutely easy. This thing definitely gets more difficult as you get into it. If you've watched my videos on building the thing, you already know some of the complaints I've had. But obviously, like we've all had, the more you get into it, the more stuff gets in the way. And this car is no different than any other about wanting you to put little bits and bobs on once you've mounted other stuff that's in the way. And it's this part, and as much as I like Tamiya, and the parts do fit well, their instructions could use some improvement, and the quality of the parts are fine. Somebody told me that this was basically more or less kind of like a die cast kit that was designed to be acquired already made, and then they decided to make a kit out of it, kind of like Airfix's original Ferguson tractor. Well, let me tell you a few stories about today. To begin with, right there, you know what? Okay, what you're looking at right here is a piece of metal foil that they give you. And okay, I thought that paused it when I did that. I guess not. They give you a piece of metal foil, and on the back of it is the outline of the way you got to cut it. So, okay, no big deal. So, have to cut a piece of metal foil. At least they give you a really nice tracing on the back of it to trim it out with. So it's really not difficult. But that was a little different. I'd never actually had anything like that before. So, okay, it went on without any argument. That was actually the easiest thing. Now, you guys may recall, I think in the last video, I made the comment that the stuff I thought would be hard is easy, and the stuff I thought would be easy was hard. Those fenders are a bloody friggin' nightmare. It took me a better part of an hour to get the front fenders on. I could not believe how much trouble I had getting those 4 little screws to line up with the frames underneath on each other. Every time you try it, pops out. And I wound up putting pins and everything else in there to force them to line up. And once you get one of them in to kind of anchor the thing, it's not so bad, but everything keeps trying to wobble on you. It's just awkward. And I wound up sticking the screws just straight into the framing pieces that you see right there. Just putting the screws in there because I thought maybe they needed pilot holes. They didn't. They went in without any argument. So the problem was getting them through the fender into the into the holes in the frame without them falling off the screwdriver. And every time I'd put a couple of wires in to force the things to use them like Cleco fasteners to kind of force things to line up, as soon as you start wobbling stuff, the pins would drop out and everything would fall in your hand. But finally I got them on there. And of course, the biggest other problem is not breaking stuff while you're doing that. By the way, burning B24, actually a lot of people do convert these into RCs. Apparently that's a thing, which I can understand. It actually, you could preserve a lot of the detail and convert this into an RC if you knew what you were doing, which I don't, and I won't, because no. So another joy, and that leads us into the next thing. And I don't mean this to turn into a gripe session. This is a very good kit. I don't mean to be bashing it. I'm just talking about the aggravations of the stuff, that I had. Now, what also, you notice the rear fender's just posed here. It's not actually mounted. I ran into a problem with the rear fender, and this gets into administration of this thing. There are 2 bags of screws, an A bag and a B bag, and it took me a while to figure out that on the instructions, the stuff in the A bag are labeled BA, and the stuff in the B bag are labeled BB. As Steve had pointed out to me recently, because he's building the Eagle Moss DB5, he's had the same kind of problem that the instructions have not changed, even though improvements to the kits have been made. So the instructions might, they could use a little updating. Now, I put you'll notice these blue cups. I put all of the A stuff in, and it was all intermixed, in a cup labeled A, and all the B stuff in a cup labeled B. And I haven't had any trouble not getting them mixed up. But, and there's always a but. What I recommend if you ever build this or anything like this is do the following. Find your little key of all the different screws and everything, which is on the back of the instruction sheet. And get all of your screws subdivided so that BA1, BA2, BA3 are in a separate cup, clearly labeled. I should have done that. Because they look so much, some of these screws look so much alike, they're bloody near impossible, but some are self-tapping and some aren't. Now here's the problem that I ran into with the rear fenders. You're supposed to use BB4. Apparently, I mistaken, and the BB4 looks a lot like screw BA4. Oh God, I hope you guys are still with me on this and haven't gone to sleep yet. This is really boring, but it's important. Apparently, I mistakenly used a lot of the BB4s where I was supposed to use BA4s. Probably got them out of the wrong cup and they looked right. Because I got a lot of BA4s left, but I'm out of BB4s, and the BB4s need to mount that fender because they self-tap into the aluminum because there is no framing behind it. The rear fender goes straight, just has to self-tap into and all the other into the aluminum holes, and all of the other screws are too skinny. They basically slide in. So I'm probably going to wind up using BA4 screws and putting a touch of CA glue on them, just to hold them in place, because it's a fender. I mean, it's not under any heavy stress as long as I don't manhandle it. But I'm like, this is a little embarrassing. I have literally run out of the and I got plenty of the wrong kind of screw left. So this was an administrative error, and thanks, Tom. I appreciate that. You know, I have to admit, this Caterham has been a combination of a challenge, an aggravation, and moments of pure joy, because sometimes you get a screw. One of the screws in the Ford fender, I think it was the number 3 screw on the left side. Don't ask me why I remember that. After all the fighting, I stuck it in, gave it one twist, it bit in and went in with no argument. I had it in 3 turns. It's the only one that did that. I thought I was going to cry. I was so happy. It's just amazing how... Yeah, here's a grown man. He flies jet airplanes for a living. And what makes you cry, Max? Well, when the screws of my models go in without any argument on the first try. I'm easily amused. Yeah, Jeff, you were absolutely right. I thought I had prepped this, and yeah, Tabby, you're right. It is kind of like ordering from a Chinese menu. The detail level is impressive, but the more you get ready in advance, the better it is. One other quick note is, well, you know, I guess that goes for almost any kit model build. The more prep work you do in advance, the easier the actual construction goes. And I'm kind of bad about not prepping that well and having to do it as I go. And everybody's got their thing, and I hate to say it, it's probably just general laziness. But Jeff's right. Prepping this thing ahead of time definitely will make life go a lot easier. Now, I'll be honest with you. If you have the focus, because I can only work on something like this for about an hour or 2 a day. Sometimes you lose track of time and you work 3 or 4 hours without realizing it. But generally speaking, I can only work on this thing for about an hour or 2 a day before I start to lose focus and I figure it's time to put it down and go do something else. And it's an interesting kit. The one thing I've noticed, and I've never found this in a Tamiya kit anywhere, and this kit's the same. They have plastic, aluminum, just kind of every medium you can imagine, vinyl, all that. The one thing they do not have in this kit is resin. I haven't found anything made out of resin. In fact, I don't think I've ever seen a resin piece in a Tamiya kit. And you guys, if you know of one, let me know, because I'm kind of curious about that. And Steve's absolutely right. The instruction sheets are they're not bad. They're just not as thorough as they need to be. There's a complete steering gear into that box, and although I did break the axle up front, when you turn the right front wheel, the steering wheel rotates. However, when you turn the steering wheel, the wheel doesn't always rotate. So, what can I tell you? Should have put some oil in there or something. But and you go online, you see the guys who built this model, and the work they did is just fantastic. And I tell you what, though, this one's definitely going on the shelf in the house somewhere. May even go on the coffee table. And right now, it's kind of like what goes on the coffee table is the highest order in our house, because that has to, for my wife to put it on the coffee table, it has to meet standards. And right now, the only models that I've built that are on the coffee table are the B25 from the group build, and the Polara and the Charger, and that's because she wanted some cars to go on there. And I had a glue trooper sent me those beautiful cases to display them in. And you know what, man? Keith's got a thing. A mechanic would probably be better building this than a model builder in some ways. But you got to give Tamiya credit, though, man. They really have no fear. They will go where other model companies fear to tread. And this is definitely something different. So I'll probably I have to go to work on Monday, but there's a possibility that I might largely wrap this car up tomorrow. But this is as much as I'm going to show you guys because I'm saving the final finished product for the car build, the group build, auto Karma build in January. And I'm really kind of excited because after this I can get started on that Monkeys Mobile. All right, let's see here. You know what? That is really all the pictures that I had. You know, let me put this back, but shrink it down. There we go. We'll just let that run. And so that's where I'm at with that. Now, I have a very... Great, I cleaned up my desk and now I can't find anything. I had written some notes about stuff. Oh, here it is. I have a very detailed script of things to talk about. Now, I thought you guys would appreciate this. The Polara, the 64 Polara, is one of the two cars that's on the coffee table. And I was chatting with my brother last night, and you guys know that the reason I have a fond affection for that car is my grandmother had one, and I sort of inherited it for high school. Now mine, the one she had was the one with the push button gears and the throw down parking lever and the little dinky engine in it, and a 4-door, not the Polara. Jay Leno just recently did a Polara video, and his was a 64, but it was like the kit, like it wasn't a Ram Charger like the kit was, but it was one of the more powerful models. And what did they call that engine before the Hemi? Dodge had an engine that was really powerful, but that was popular before the Hemi. Anyway, well, the nice thing, David, you're right. A plexi display case would be nice, but the nice thing about this car is that because it's metal and you could probably dust it off without breaking something. Oh, by the way, one of the glue troopers is sending me a scale figure to go in it, so I'm gonna paint that up. Probably have my wife do the face on it and pose it in there. And if I'm not mistaken, I think it's actually the designer of the Lotus series. Was it Colin Chapman? What was his name? The guy who designed the Lotus. Anyway, wedge engine. Thank you, Steve. Yes, the wedge engine. So Leno just did a thing with a 64 Polara with a wedge engine in it. I don't know why they call it a wedge engine, but I was like, that's cool. Oh, Slugo, you were so right. They are definitely patient. So, anywho, thanks, Lance. Jetfire or Fire Dome. Oh, thank you, James. Yeah. My brother told me a story and I may have heard this when I was a kid, but I know a lot of you guys are car guys, so you'll get a tickle out of this. Now, my grandfather passed about the time I was born, and not long after I was born. I'm actually named. My name was gonna be Mark, and then my uncle Max passed just before I was born, so they named me. That's why my given name is Max. It's not Maxwell or Maximilian. It's just Max. Anyway, so my grandmother was a widow. My dad, of course, already had his own family, so she was by herself. So her brother, Ralph, moved in, and Ralph was a confirmed bachelor, and he had his girlfriends, but he was quite the Jack the Lad, and he had to have a kind of a sporty little car. Now we kind of don't snicker at what I'm about to say, but my Uncle Ralph was also a passionate golfer. So apparently in, I want to say about 64, he goes down and buys a Falcon. Now, as we all know, the Falcon later became, was the frame they used for the Mustang. So I know they look a little dorky today, but the Falcon was actually kind of a sporty car in its time. And apparently he brought it home, and he went out to grab his golf clubs. Well, he got a 2-door, and he realized he had to fold the seat down and everything. It was a real pain in the ass. So that day, he took it back to the dealership and got a 4-door, just so that he could throw his golf clubs in the back without any argument. This is how great decisions are made. And, apparently that, it might have been a 62 or 63. Apparently my grandmother eventually needed a car. She'd been flying, apparently, this is before my time, she was driving something from the 40s, I guess. And so she got the 64 Polara. Brand spanking new off the lot. And they made sure to get a four-door so that if Ralph had to use it, he could throw his clubs in the back. I think I'm getting these details right. But I'm like, all of the cars on the lot, and you buy a four-door with the little engine and the push-button gears and the transmission in it. And anybody who's driven an old Dodge knows exactly what I'm talking about. They make that whine. Their transmissions make a noise like no other, sound like no other. And I'm thinking, so I wound up going to school in a beat-up old, underpowered, poorly maintained 64 Dodge Polara four-door. It's probably worth about $8,000 today. When I could have been going in a Ram Charger. All because Uncle Ralph wanted to be able to throw his golf clubs in the back of the cart. I just thought I would share that with you. I thought you would find that if you sure was an upgraded version. Really? Oh my God. I just can't see Batman in a Falcon. Falcon. Hey Rob Altus, welcome. I thought I would share that little story with you, and since I'm sharing that, I'll share it. Now great. Now I got to go find a model of a '62 Falcon and a. You got to understand, my grandmother followed up her Polara when I got it. She got a Maverick, a four-door Maverick. Now, of course, with the little old lady engine in it. So when people show me pictures of Mavericks as muscle cars, or Polaras as Ram Chargers, or Falcons as muscle cars, I'm like, there's a cognitive dissonance because I saw them all as these little four-door granny cars. Of course, I had the same beef with my sister-in-law. When I was a cop, we drove Crown Vics, and then so I've always loved Crown Vics. And she's like, that's a frumpy old lady's car. I'm like, yeah, that's my macho police cruiser. I'm like, it's whatever you make out of it, I guess. Well, how you doing? So anyway, it just, one could say that there's a certain, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't want to sound like a eugenicist, but they polluted the muscle car DNA by making the same car with dinky little engines. Let's take this, this hot rod, put four doors and a small engine in it, and sell it to grandma. A Fairlane. A friend of mine had a Galaxy 500, like a 70. God, what was that thing that Russell had? A 75. And we used to go cruising in it. And there's this kind of oddball musician named Reverend Horton Heat. Who does something called psychobilly rock. I think he kind of invented the genre. And he's got the song, one of my favorite songs is Galaxy 500. I get to keep the Galaxy 500. YouTube it. You guys, if you're car guys, you'll get a tickle out of it. And if you know who Reverend Horton Heat is, good on you. A Challenger with a slag 6. Yeah, it challenges that every time it goes up a hill. A two-door Maverick. Well, the two-door Maverick, some of them had big motors. I mean, I've seen pictures of Mavericks. It's basically hot rods. Oh, man. God, tell me we did not grow up the greatest time to grow up. When, this stuff meant something. Nowadays, and I'm not knocking new cars, they're super efficient, incredibly reliable. And yeah, maybe you're right, Rob. But when somebody says, I drove a Polara, I see a little lady's car, not appreciating that some of the Polaras were genuine, especially the wedge engine jobs were genuine, legit muscle cars. You look at the 440s and stuff. I mean, those are peppy cars at the time. You had the Chrysler 300. That was actually a hot rod before there were hot rods. But it was this interesting mix of a genuine luxury car with a genuine hot rod. And the Chrysler 300, I think, is still one of the top-selling kit models out there. Apparently, they fly off the shelves a lot. That car has a surprising following. Well, not surprising, but
but it's not part of the, unless if you're a car guy, it is. But if you're not a car person, everybody knows a Trans Am and a Firebird because TV shows. You got people. You got Smokey and the Bandit and Rockford. So the car gets popularized in the mind, but the Mustang, Bullet, and so these cars become like in the common pop culture. They're identified, but they're not the true hot rods. 440s and a lot of these other stuff, and 442s and things. Which, although the 442 did get a little love in the movie Demolition Man. Oh, you had a straight six? Yeah, my brother had the Dodge Swinger with a slant six in it, and he loved that car. And I gotta admit, I remember one day he came home and popped the door up, and I was like, this boxy little car is actually kind of cool. You ever notice how your taste in cars sort of evolves? The cars you hated as a kid. When I was a kid, my grandmother had like a 57 Bel Air, and I was kind of old lady car. Now I'd pluck a tooth to have a 57 Bel Air. MX, your content. Love your content. I'm a high school senior who loves aircraft president model. Whoa. Black Hat, are you telling me there's actually a modeling club in a high school today? Yes, surprisingly. Okay, just answer my question. Dude, that is freaking awesome. Oh, I am so glad to hear that. What do you guys tend to build? Aircraft, tanks, or is there anything in particular? Guys, check out Black Hat 992's comment here. Because trust me, Black Hat, one of the things that me and my contemporaries lament all the time is there's not enough kids in hobby shops. Although, in fairness, I got to admit, I've been seeing a lot more of them lately, and maybe I've just started noticing them. The hottest Maverick was a 302 V8 grabber, not really a muscle car. Well, but you had a dinky little Maverick, though. That's a lot of motor for that small car. We had RB47s at a Lockburn near Columbus, Ohio. Oh, man. 6 turning, black smoke churning. The RB47 guys is a reconnaissance version of the B47, which, if I'm not mistaken, at least one version of that, where the Bombay was at, had a pod with 3 sensor guys, and who did not have ejection seats, by the way, and I think it was an EB or an RB47 that was shot down somewhere near Russia or China, and I think only the pilots got out because they had ejection seats. The rest of the guys went down with the ship. There's not a lot to completely shift gears, because that's what we do here. There's not, because it was the nature, like the subservice, the silent service, and the Air Force, you have the recon guys who, Cold War, Hot War, no war, they're out there flying the spooky missions, and a lot of them just get disappeared, and they never get the accolades because they're dark missions. And salute to those folks and the sacrifices, the risk they take and the sacrifices they made. Made the Trooper Force. Okay, Bruce, I'm stealing that. By the way, looking forward to you coming to Florida. Folks, Mystic Modeler Ships, Bruce is moving down here to sunny Florida. And he'll only be about an hour from here, hour and a half. So I look forward to hooking up with him when he gets down there and helping me with my ship models. And, we had a model building club right here at the local Hobby Lobby that I went to one time. There were 2 guys there. But it is nice when you have model builders nearby. It's just, to share the hobby with. Volvo staff car. Okay, so you guys know, at a future date, probably sometime next year, I am planning for one of our group builds to do a Tom Daniel inspired build. You got to come up with your own model, sort of a kit bashish sort of thing that would be along the lines of something you thought Tom Daniel may have come up with. Now, I've got mine. I'll go ahead and leak this little bit of information. I'm going to use that M16 aircraft gun half-track, convert it into what I'm going to call Patton's Power Wagon to go with my Rommel's rod. I got my Rommel's rod right here. I believe this one, I think this was sent to me by Orange Tabby. And this one, but TD, it's sitting on a box that Tom Daniel sent me out of his personal stash Now, all of these have Tom Daniels' signature printed on them, but if you'll notice, not to brag, but that's exactly what I'm doing, TD signed it for me personally. The model's still in there. I won't build it because, well, I don't think I have to explain. But at the same time, I believe it was OT sent me this one. So I built it and I display it on my desk. Best of both worlds. You guys are awesome. Thank you for that stuff, guys. I heard owner of Hobby Lobby might shut down the chain due to government regulation. Haven't heard that. Christ, that would murder Atlantis if it did it, because they're a Hobby Lobby supplier. I think that's their one major what do you call it, retail outlet. That would not be good. No bueno. If that's the Matador, I'm a meter maid. I don't care what the theme is, as long as they sell plastic models, I'm there. So you're out there near Chino. I've been to Chino, to Plains of Fame one time. I'm reading Black Hat's comment. They have some really interesting stuff out there. One of the I have a fascination with Japanese aircraft also, but that's partly because of the rarity. And I don't think I'm unusual in this regard. The more obscure something is, the more I want to see it. And I think that's a normal human thing. If somebody tells me that, there's a P-51 at the airport, I'm like, oh, that's cool. I've seen plenty of them. I'm not going to make a special trip. But if somebody tells me, hey, somebody's got a Boeing F-4B or a P-6E Hawk, that I'll get in the car and drive out there for. Oh, by the way, these are a couple. I found this photograph laying around the other day. This photo was taken probably somewhere around 1975 in my brother and I's bedroom. And of course, you can tell it's a Polaroid SX70 photo. And you can tell we just gotten into painting our models at that point. And those two actually weren't half bad. 1/72 scale. Oh, speaking of the Atlantis P6M or Atlantis, I heard a rumor from a couple of you guys that they're going to be putting the 727 out of production. Now, I put some feelers out about that. I haven't been able to figure out why. I do know that some of the companies like Boeing and Lockheed have been buying up the rights to the names and everything and charging kit model companies some pretty stupid fees to keep the kits in production. I don't know if that plays into this scenario or not. And when you get right down to it, you realize that a royalty fee from every kit made in the world would cost about as much as one fan blade for a jet engine from General Electric. So maybe they think it's free money. I don't know. But a lot of people are, take care, Chuck. I'm glad you made it. I don't know what the story is with that. B-50 and pretty much lost Kendley. Yeah, they lost B-50s all the time. That's really not that big of a mystery. So anyway, that was. I hope if you guys want to get an Eastern 727 from Atlantis, I recommend you grab it now. I told you to have the helicopters, and sure enough, they're disappearing too. And my last note here is crossover. This is something my wife had suggested. I actually texted it to this, so if you don't want to just read the bloody text. My wife asked a question, and I thought it was a pretty doggone good one. Let's see here. Okay. She asked about, is there the crossover of the artistic drive and talent and intellect with mechanical engineering, is that not the perfect description of model builders? We love the engineering behind this stuff. We love the machinery that we're building models of. But yet we have that artistic flair. We want to create something and paint it and everything. And I think that One of these days I'm going to actually put a graph up here. I've talked about the lift over drag diagram that we use in aviation. One line represents lift and drag. And when you get right in that middle spot where they cross over, maximum L over D, you're most efficient. And I think that model builders do have a certain convergence of artistic drive and I'll call it mechanical drive or engineering drive. But okay. There is I think all of us live in that world where we can appreciate art, we have a creative drive, but we also appreciate engineering. And I think, in my humble opinion, there's a certain that helps with, that's kind of a sign of a balanced mind. You're not too far in one direction. You're not Sheldon Cooper and you're not Wolowitz. But if anybody catches that reference. Black Hat points out he's looking for an 047 kit. I know that airplane. Hey, Bill, man, you just enjoy yourself. Listen on and paint away. The Tony, a couple of guys are talking about the KI-61. Anyway, I just built a model one out on the road, and in fact, it's still on the shelf waiting to get painted up. That was an interesting concept, sort of the Japanese BF-109, and it was a handful of airplane if you went up against one. It was small, it was agile, and it was pretty fast. But the Japanese weren't too thrilled with that engine because their copy of it didn't quite work as well as the German one. They had a lot of mechanical problems with it. They wound up slapping a radial engine on that airframe, and I actually built the kit of that a while back, and it was a good airplane. They were very satisfied with it. Okay, guys. I have an empty glass. Does anyone need 5 minutes for a quick break? Let me rephrase that. I'm going to take 5 minutes for a quick break and a recap or re-nightcap. See what I did there? Yeah, okay, that joke was so bad. So I am going to be back in just a minute, guys. You keep chatting amongst each other or take a break, and I'll be right back. And I are back. I'm just leaving this up here to have something more interesting than me for you guys to look at. Skull. So, yes, Max's models does come complete with an intermission. How many of you guys recognize this? Build the new Apollo moonship, yours for 10 cents. With trial membership. You know, I don't think I ever actually sent one of these things in as a kid. But I will tell you right now, I was enamored with the artwork. Of course, I grew up this, during the height of the space race. So I was just anything Apollo or spacey. I was like, ooh. By the way, guys, I am working on getting the information for a video on Keelcraft, and that some of you probably seen the video that I linked. I did find there was actually some rare, like 8 or 16 millimeter footage from the factory, and give you a little heads up. Unfortunately, the guy who founded the thing was killed in an automobile accident on the H127 in the UK. So, but it's interesting is that Keelcraft only dabbled in styrene, which is the focus of this channel, but they did do a lot of very popular balsa kits. And I do balsa companies. I do Guilos and Sterling. What I found interesting was, some of you know that was the Vintage Model Company. They still make the Keelcraft kits. Now that's a testament to how well they were designed. But I'll be getting to all that detail when I do the video. I don't know when I'll get around because I go to work on Monday. I still have a job. And the holidays are slowing everything down. But I just thought that was interesting that a company that started making stuff, right after the Second World War, originally the old man had started a furniture company, and the son got into it, and then he wound up getting into models. And it of course, is a tragedy that he was killed, but and there's actually some rare movie footage of him. I'll see if I remember, I'll put a link below. But I did contact the person who posted it and asked them if they could use it, and they were like, sure. And they've actually sent me some other information. That was sweet. I mean, it's really nice, that like, yeah, sure, And I don't know if you guys are familiar with a insanely detailed kit model company called Zuikimori. They make a small number, I think mostly 1/32 scale kits that are absurdly detailed on the inside. I mean, they literally make like wing spar stringers and formers. It's almost like building a balsa kit with a plastic shell around it. Like, oh god, they are insane. And I wanted to do a kit. It's a fairly new company, and I got some images and I asked them to use it, and they were like, sorry, we don't have the rights, and we can't. The people who actually had posted the stuff said they didn't have the rights to their material. It belonged to the company, and they kind of control their own image, I guess. And I was like, well, I guess I won't do that one. But they're such a new company, there's not much of a history to do because they're still in production. They started not that long ago. Some of you guys probably know more about them than I do. I don't know if anybody's built a Zuikimori kit, but man, I mean, you got to be like a diorama person who wants to show the inside or something. Otherwise, you're buying a lot of styrene you're never going to see. And this Caterham drives me bonkers enough that at least the bonnet comes... I've been building a British model car long enough. I'm calling the hood, what we call it in the U.S., a bonnet. And the boot's covered with that rubber cover. But at least the bonnet pops off so I can display it with the engine displayed if I want to really show it to people. But you build a styrene kit, and I know some people just like to detail the inside for their own edification. I know they did it. I get it. It's just a modeler's challenge. Yes, you did, teenager in sack. I think this is 90 proof. Don't be shortchanging me. Actually, I don't know. The HS one, that's the one I was thinking of. I saw the RA0330, and you're going to have to tell us what the heck that means. He's talking about the HS 129. That was actually the one that I saw. It's got like fuel tanks and everything, and I'm kind of like, and if you're doing a cutaway, it's perfect. Or one that's going to be like a diorama where they're repairing battle damage and the skin's peeled off. But the idea of putting all that work into one, you know, what you could do is take a lot of those guts, paint them up separately, build the model, put it on display, and then put the parts outside stacked up as like spare parts. Something like that. But the ZM kit, Trey's right. They are crazy detailed. And I think they're about $300, but it looks like they're worth it. I have a weird desire to search that old BV-141. The Ace. Yeah, Bloom and Voss. You got to give them credit. You guys probably remember the Bloom and Voss 141 was the one where the cockpit's sections out of the wing by itself, and the fuselage and engine are on their own section next to it. And they also the ones that came out with the single-bladed prop with the counterweight. And you're kind of like, what the hell were they thinking? Believe it or not, there are aerodynamic reasons for doing that. The ZM kit includes the pistons for each engine. Hey, if you're making a maintenance diorama, that is awesome. But otherwise, hey, John, you're here. I was just talking about you earlier. I didn't know if you caught it, but folks, John is the one that's going to be sending me at some point the figure for the Caterham. And was that Colin Chapman? Was that his name? The guy that you're. I like Cater. Okay. Took me a second to catch that one, Lance. Okay, gotcha. You know, we speak our minds here. And you guys know that cars are not my strong suit, although I have learned a ton from you. And I feel that it's fairly safe to say, because all of you, without exception, have pointed out that the Lotus and the guy that designed it and everything was not automotive history's favorite person. We'll just go with that. And one thing, Colin Chapman, yeah, okay. One thing that as I put this thing together, this Caterham together, I have come to realize is that first I was like, what is with this overly complex suspension system? Why do you have two sets of springs and levers but I also know it was a kit car, and I'm thinking, and you guys know more about this than I do, so to chime in here, but I'm thinking one thing I realized, there are no complex curves or special moldings. Virtually, you look at the front end here, virtually everything's made of more or less straight tubing. And for a kit car, that makes it easier for someone. It makes it cheaper for the manufacturer to just send you a bunch of pre-cut tubing. And for the guys putting together, it's all bolt together. Now, I don't know if that's why they did that. I mean, it looks like the front of a 1930s car. But I'm also guessing it was, maybe it was lighter. But my God, the system seems so complex. But then again, I got to think about when it was made and what the technology of the day was. So you guys have at it. I'm just trying to catch up here on the comments. Reminds me of Senna Prost. I'm sorry. Again, not a race guy. Don't know what that means, but built the 127 as the super. I thought about converting this to the Prisoner version, but it's such a nice kit. And they would have required so much stuff that I would have had to order. And I'm like, nope. I'm going to make it. In fact, I was going to paint it like the Prisoner car, just sort of as a quasi. But then I was like, nah, this thing, I was convinced that this thing was made to be made this way. And I think it does look better this way. But one concession I did make was I did not put the shoulder harnesses or seat belts in. They're bright colors, and as big as they are, they just dominate the look of the thing. Don't get me wrong, I know they're in the real car, and I wouldn't drive one without it. But just for the model, I just think it looks so much better without the seat belts in it. That's my humble opinion. And what's the motto of this whole channel? Make it what you want it to be. And I just think it looks better this way. So, But this car does bring up if you look at the nose cap, and by the way, each wheel hub, including the spare, all have the Lotus logo on them, or Caterham logo on them. And they came in these pieces of vinyl that you peel out and dig it out of there, and they're so tiny and hard to manipulate. And I think I got it on crooked, but the attention to detail on this model is bloody ridiculous. But like I said, I cannot believe how much trouble I had getting the bloody fenders on those frames. I thought that was going to be the easiest thing. You can see what you're doing. You have easy access. And what's the motto in both dentistry and model building? Access is success. And oh my God, it took me an hour to get the fenders on. Just the front fenders. So, I'm not getting over that anytime soon. Caterham trauma. But, sorry, read some of the comments. B-52 in Southeast End with all the iron bombs. Oh my God. Just doing all those bombs. You guys ever seen how many bombs a B-52 carried externally? The thing was a bomb truck and a half. It could carry just a truckload of bombs on the outside, in addition to a couple of truckloads of bombs on the inside. Sterling Moss, I tell you what. Okay, since we got the car guys going. Oh God, man, I wish Andy was here. Because, you know, he met those guys when he did that, when he was a turn judge at that thing for the Ed Sullivan show. You know, it's sad. I got to speak to Andy many times on the phone, communicated with him ad nauseum via email, but I never got a chance to actually sit down with him, and I really wish I had. Super 7 was told as a car in... to get away from... Interesting. It's all about the tax man. As I read the comments, we're just bouncing back and forth from B-52s to Caterhams and... Okay, you guys are talking about having real competition again. Somebody's got to expand on that because I'm getting lost. Well, Francis, I hope you make it there. I hope I make it there. Eat dessert first. Tomorrow is guaranteed to no one. Oh, the Wesleyan whirlwind. Okay. Because I make crap up as I go along, I want everyone to put down, just write down, your favorite Airfix kit. Because a lot of guys are talking about Airfix here. Well, heck yeah, baby. This is stuff good barbecue's made out of. And the rum cake. The rum. You forgot the rum. You burned the rum. Really okay. So we got the Wesleyan Whirlwind. Dam Busters Lancaster. Nice choice. I've got the Revell one up there I need to get to. Just put it on in the garage. There was severe tax in the K50s. The XK was much cheaper in the U.S. versus... That just ain't right. Okay, Aston Martin DB5. I'm sure that... Oh, I'm going to go with Trey. I'm going to say the Rotodyne. I think that's the most awesome thing that never was. By the way, I built the 1/72nd scale Airfix Hellcat, and all the decals had gone bad with age. That was an excellent little kit. I mean, we're talking 1/72nd scale with moving ailerons and everything. It was really... I got to admit, I was impressed, but I'm going to agree with the, oh gosh, and the license, and I'm changing my mind. Oh my God, I don't know. You know, I probably never given Airfix as much credit as I should. There weren't that, well, there were. I just usually bought Monogram. Oh, that was, I didn't realize it was Airfix. Oh, that's right, they did make the Angel Interceptor. I remember looking at an Angel Interceptor in, God, what was 77, going, what is this? Because I hadn't seen the show back then. because we didn't have the interweb. Wow, this did not take you guys long. Good work, everybody. A Bug Eye Sprite, good one. Well, Slugo, you'll just have to go get one. I tell you what, Slugo, send me your email address or your regular snail mail address, and I'll just send you one. Burning B-24. And there's so many that were all great. They were. Ichival. Ravel Rotodyne, yep. Yep. For those, I'm sure you guys all know what the Rotodyne was, but for in case there's somebody at Saturn V, okay. What was your transport? Okay, that Scammel tank transport. Okay, that one came out of nowhere. I did not see that coming. Let's see. The Bond Bug 3. So, in case anybody didn't know, the Rotodyne was what looked like a helicopter mated with a Shorts 330. It was a airliner concept. Basically, you look at winged Winnebago with these Rolls-Royce Dart engines, but it also had a helicopter rotor blade, which was only used for takeoff and landing. Then they flew like a gyrocopter. And as far as I'm concerned, it was no worries, Slugo. The concept was center city to center city, and in places like Europe or in the American Northeast or perhaps on the California coast, where all these cities close together, it was a very viable concept. Now, people said it was killed because of the noise of the ramjets, the tip jets made, but that could have been worked around. I don't believe that for a minute. Hey, Ken. I don't believe that the Rotodyne was killed because of the noise it made. That was an excuse. I think it was killed because it was a threat to certain... you think about the programs that were killed because they represented a threat to an established structure, because they could have been disruptive technologies. The Canadian CF-105 Arrow, the Rotodyne, and history's full of them. For that matter, Betamax, if you want to go that far. A lot of these technologies threaten the status quo. And, I jokingly say that, change is bad, quoting one of my favorite TV characters, Sheldon Cooper from The Big Bang Theory. When he's talking to Leonard, he goes, my philosophy, Leonard, change is bad. Well, of course, that's not really true. Change is often good. But, imagine, there was a movie, which was made for TV movie 15, 20 years ago called The Water Engine, where apparently somebody figures out how to use salt water to make a motor run, and of course he's immediately, has to run for his life. Anyway, what I'm driving at is that if you invented the water engine today, and the powers that be found out, the freak out of everyone involved in the energy business would probably, you'd probably just, it was sad. Yeah, he had a mysterious heart attack while, being decapitated in a traffic accident. They couldn't identify the remains because of the fire. But I digress. Dinosaurs. I'm going to have to look that up. I have not seen Airfix dinosaurs, at least not that I recall. You picked up a Hobbycraft CF-105 for $10. I'll bet it does drive them bonkers. I have one that was sent to me, an old Aurora one built, and someone sent me the decals for it, and I still need to get around to scrubbing it and repainting it and getting it done, but I just, too many projects, not enough time. Great, now I'm going to have to put that back on the head of the list. For those, and on the off chance you have not heard me pontificate about this many times, by the way, I have all the books you guys have sent me stacked right here, except for the Across Airless Wilds, which is over here. But this magnificent machine, the CF-105 Arrow, I have said this before, and I will say it again. I believe that airplane was destroyed by its own success. And I did go out and find that docudrama with Dan Aykroyd about the making of it, and I think they told an honest story. For those who are not into aviation, to give you an idea just how big of an impact this airplane had, to repeat what I have said before, I believe the death of the CF-105 was the minute the United States Air Force showed an interest in it. I think the American aviation industry had an apoplexy, leaned on the government, to lean on the Canadian government to not put it in production, and just all forms of Game of Thrones skullduggery took place. And there is a rumor that will not die that the apparently the people living in the town said that the night before all of them were to be scrapped, they heard a loud jet take off and disappear. And there is a, I think, fantastical, but not impossible, belief that one of them is still sequestered somewhere in a climate-controlled hangar. And as much as I don't truly think that happened, I do like to think it did. Just catching up on the comments. Well, guys, I think I got a couple people that are signing off. No worries. You guys have a wonderful evening. I'm glad you joined us for a while. MS Forcing and Bruce Wheeler were not loved in combat. You know, for those on the MS, if that's the one, Marine Solner 406 was a French fighter plane. Not quite as well loved as the Déwatine. But I should point out that the export versions of the Brewster, especially in the hands of the Finns, did quite well. But that is a long story in its own right. The theory is the Canadian grassy knoll. It really is. Gosh, I know we've talked about this before, so I don't want to bore you guys who've heard it before, but the short story is that the Canadians, God bless them, you know, you guys won't be shocked to know that President Obama was not my particular favorite president of this country, but he did make a comment that I think was fair. He said the Canadians frequently punch above their weight, and they do in many, many ways, and engineering is one of them. And the CF-105 was a national effort by Canada to put themselves on the world map as a top-shelf aviation maker. And by all that is right and holy, they should be there. I genuinely believe that the reason that project was killed was because they really did make a world-beating airplane. And it terrified a very, not ossified necessarily, but a very established and politically powerful. You guys remember Eisenhower talked about beware the military-industrial complex? Well, I think that what happened to CF-105 is a classic example of what he's talking about. NIMBY, not in my backyard. No, I'm sorry, not built here. And General Dynamics and a bunch of others, the first thing they did after they got the CF-105 killed, the first thing they did was run up to Canada, passing out business and hiring all of the Canadian engineers. And if you guys recall, a lot of the guys in the space program were Canadian. Canada produced a lot of genuinely world-class theoretical and engineering people, and America stole them. Because we're America. That's what we do. Even in this book that I'm reading right now, Across the Airless Wilds, that Mr. Irick sent me, one of the things they point out is the 9 divisions of the American space program at the Marshall Space Flight Center. Every freaking one of them was run by a German. And of course, von Braun was in charge of the whole thing. So, you see, America is the great melting pot. which is a nice way of saying, if you've got excellent people, we're going to steal them. I don't think I killed Patton, but I think he wanted to. Oh, the TSR is another one. Oh, God, don't even get me started on TSR. That's another one that should have been built, but that I think that was more of a money issue. A Black Hat, I completely agree. Black Hat 992 has made a nice comment. He summed it up. The CFO would have shaken the U.S. grip on the arsenal of democracy. That kind of sums it up in a nutshell. Oh, the B1. Oh my God. I wish I could find it. There was a cartoon, a political cartoon that was great. It was after Reagan had gotten elected and resurrected the B1 program. And it shows the B1 in a junkyard with Reagan in a cockpit and a couple of jumper cables going into it. He goes, okay, try it now. Now, I got to tell you something. Here's white pad. Okay, quick side note. Some people say that the best thing that happened to Patton's legacy was being killed when he was, because he would have been like Kurt LeMay after the war, and he would have probably wound up losing a lot of his credibility with his rhetoric had he lived much longer. So take that for what it's worth. I've heard that comment made. Anyway, so what was I talking about before that? Because I've completely forgotten. Got to read the comments. Sorry, I messed up. I have moth. Ooh. You went to Spartan? My dad went to Spartan. Spartan was and still is a aviation school, mechanics and stuff, a technical school. And my dad went to the Spartan School of Aeronautics, I think before he went in the Air Force. Or was it after? I forget. But good school. He went to Chanute, which named after Octave Chanute for his Air Force training. I got a picture of him somewhere where they're all in a coverall standing in front of an A-26, which by then had been renamed the B-26. I just said that, Hornet. I just said that. I didn't kill Pat, but he probably wanted to. What was... well, okay. So I forgot. Who cares? It wasn't that important. No, Patton was killed in a legit traffic accident. If you've ever seen those cars that era, it doesn't surprise me the slightest. If they were going to whack him, that's not how they'd have done it. That was too random. But I will tell you point blank, though, I think there were... God, this is a horrible thing to say, but I think there were quite a few people who breathed a sigh of relief when he stopped breathing. Oh, you guys hear that the Russian Navy's out there looking for the F-35 that went in the drink? Bernelli or Bernoulli? Well, anywho, let's see what else we got. Good God, I really totally forgot what I was going to talk about. If you 1965 Spartan grad. All right, hooah! I think my dad would have graduated in the late 40s or early 50s. I honestly, I should know this. I know he went there, got his AMP. He may have done that before he went in the Air Force. With patent suspenders. Yeah, Patton's probably come back and he believed in reincarnation. Well, I'm going to make Patton's Power Wagon, and one of the things I'm going to have is I'm trying to figure out exactly what I want to do with it. I think I'm going to give it side-by-side front wheels to try and because it's supposed to be like a Tom Daniel inspired thing. You're going to extend the back or maybe put an articulating rear end with another set of tracks on it. And once that's going to have like maps and radios like military, so that's going to have like a linen tablecloth with with the little top over it and everything, and the champagne. And I might have a little he always read his Bible, so I might have a little religious thing there, and maybe put something about reincarnation stuff, something like that. Pat and Houdini are working on a comeback machine. How do you know they haven't already? There's something about Monogram in the A26. For some reason, that kit always was like the one they would put on top of their displays when they made store displays. By the way, on the off chance, and I know Andy had some, and Phil, who has his videos out on YouTube, has some too. If you have any of those original store displays, for God's sakes, take care of them, put them under glass. Patton Sidearms kick butt. Well, Sonny, you'll be glad to know I've seen both his Peacemaker and his 357. And since you brought it up, Chanute in 70s. All right, my dad. Yeah, he went to Chanute for his training. I am going to talk a little bit about Patton's pistols. And if you do a Patton, and I got to get a Patton figurine for my 135 scale, or 132nd scale, or I guess 135 surpassed for my Tom Daniel build, which is going to be late next year, so don't get in a twist about it. But you might start thinking about it. Oh, really? Well, he's not the one that killed him, right? Patton, for those who don't know, had actually fought as a young second lieutenant in the Panchavia punitive expeditions that Blackjack Pershing did before the First World War. He was put in charge of a couple of motor cars, and he was sent out to go question some people. And he came across one of Panchavia's lieutenants. Now, at that time, by the way, a lot of people don't know this, but Patton was actually independently wealthy. His family, he was from a wealthy family. And in fact, I think he was one of the richest officers in the Army. So he was always, for lack of a better way to put it, I know this is a little tacky, but he was kind of pimped out. And he bought, not Pearl, ivory-handled Peacemaker, Colt 45 cowboy pistol. And he wore it in a quasi-military, quasi-gunfighter kind of rig that was typically of his own design. And they came across some of Panchavia's people. And on paper, this is a military battle. But when you really break it down, it was really an Old West gunfight. The American soldiers, I think he had 2 Ford motor cars, if I'm not mistaken. And the soldiers that were with him were carrying typical pre-World War II, 1903 Springfields. But Panchavia's guys were horseback and were wearing Buscadero rigs and sombreros and, the whole mishmash. It's kind of a weird, almost steampunk kind of thing. And one of Villa's lieutenants was there, and they tried to run, but they got caught by the soldiers, so they decided to shoot it out with them. Well, the soldiers all took up their, kneeling position, bolt action, like, with kind of a proto-World War I sort of thing, while the Mexicans were shooting with their lever actions or whatever they had, Mausers. And apparently, as the story goes, Patton faced off at fairly short distance with one of Panchavia's lieutenants, who drew a revolver from an Old West-style holster. Patton drew his revolver, which was a Colt Peacemaker, and they shot it out, and Patton killed the guy. And I think one of his aides. And took the corpses back to Pershing. And after that, Pershing called, if what I have read is correct or heard is correct, ever since then, Pershing referred to Patton as my little bandito. Now, technically on paper, like I say, it was a military shootout, but apparently it was, depending on who you ask, it was more like an Old West gunfight. And Patton's reputation was kind of solidified after that. A lot of people don't know this, but Patton was an Olympic level pistol shot. I don't know if he actually competed in the Olympics, but I know he was a competition shooter with handguns and skeet and everything else. Well, in 1935, and I am probably going to bore the snot out of you here. In 1935, Smith & Wesson was trying to come up with a way to, they were getting really bugged by a lot of people. And I apologize, I got one in the closet, I should probably run and get it. But around 1920 or so, Smith & Wesson took their they'd been making 38 revolvers for police officers, right? And hunters and everything else. I mean, they're gun companies, and 38 was a very popular caliber. But guys were stoking these 38 rounds up because they were kind of anemic, and they were stoking them up to some pretty absurd velocities. They were packing them with powder, blowing the guns up. And Smith & Wesson like, Jesus! So around 1920, 1925, they take their big end-frame revolver and just bore the cylinder out to 38. So they can handle these super hopped up charges. I have one. It's, that back then they called it a 38-44, 38 built on a 44 frame. You guys want me to get it? I'll go dig it out of the safe real quick. Satin with socialite male. Absolutely he was. He was very much a man of his time. And there was a lot of pressure from the hunting community for them to make this a standard kind of thing. But Smith said, look, people are going to put these super hot rounds, these little dinky 38s, and they're going to blow them up. The big 38 can handle it. But the little ones, I mean, they even back then, lawsuits were a thing. So they come to a compromise. They're going to take this 38-44 and they're going to bore out the cylinder a little bit, 17/1000ths of an inch. Make these longer case rounds that they're going to call 357 Magnum, and they call them that because it's actually a 36 caliber or 357 caliber bullet. I'd love a Smith & Wesson. Hold on. I'll be back in a minute. Don't go away. Okay, so sorry about that. Yeah, no, not a bunt line. Okay, Smith & Wesson is making a bunch of what today we would call K-frame 38s. Now, this is a later Model 15, all right? So, these are basic, kind of your standard cop 38 revolver, right? You can see by the size of my hand, they're not particularly large. So, the problem is guys are putting these overpressure rounds in these things and blowing them up. So, Smith & Wesson comes up with... They had long since, if you guys recall in the First World War, a lot of guys carried these much larger, in what we now call in-frame revolvers, in 44, 455, 45 ACP, and a bunch of other calibers. But it was a really good, it was just a beefed up, bigger than the K-frame. But it was just basically a K-frame upsized, right? You know what? I think we can get rid of this for the moment. And at the risk of sounding so you guys can see a little better, let's go ahead and... There we go. Ooh, no, can't see the bedroom. So here we go with these big, what we now call in-frame revolvers. You recognize Indiana Jones carried this kind of stuff. But these are big revolvers. Well, what do you do when you make a big revolver like this, but you've got overcharged rounds for a dinky revolver like this? Well, you take the big revolver and you chamber it for 38. This is a Smith & Wesson 3844, later called the Model 20. This is the big end frame, but if you look at the cylinder, they're just 38 caliber borings. Okay? This cannot shoot a 357. This can only shoot a 38. I don't care how hot you stoke the 38, this gun can handle it, because look how much steel there is around that cylinder, around each round, compared to that. Can you see that? Oh my God, I can't believe I'm doing this. Anyway, so, oh, good move, Max. So, we have the 38 on a 44 frame, ergo the 3844. You can now pack all the powder you want in your mighty 38, and the 3844 can handle it, okay? This thing turns out to be way more popular than anybody anticipated. Even with law enforcement to carry that heavy bugger on their hips all the time. So, Smith & Wesson, the guys keep stoking up the 38s. Smith & Wesson gets worried. All right? People are going to take these super hot 38 rounds and jam them into these dinky little 38s, and we're going to be facing lawsuits to the horizon. So, and I should add that some of these 38 rounds were stoked up today, what we would call magnum velocities, or dangerously close to it. So Smith & Wesson takes this very gun, they extend the cylinder a little bit and groove out the inside of the cylinder. You might be able to notice there's some rings in there. For the bullets, the rim of the bullets to sit on, they move those 17 if I remember correctly, 17 1/1000ths of an inch further down. They extend the case of the bullet 17 100ths of an inch, and they stoke them up to magnum velocities. And the 357 Magnum is born. That was 1935. So what happened? Well, the whole idea behind a lot of people, they extended the case so they could put more powder. No. You could already stoke these puppies up. They extended the case so they would not fit in a normal 38, and you couldn't get the ammo mixed up. That's why they changed the name. Now you're asking, why is one a 38 and one a 357? Short story. In days of yore, you measured the caliber of a bullet by the diameter of the hole. In other words, the size of the case. But that standard had changed in the meantime. You now determine the caliber by the bore of the barrel, which of course the case is bigger than the actual projectile. So there you go. So a 38 is actually a 357 special, but the case is 38 caliber, or 371 to 379 to 381, depending on who made it. And the projectile was always roughly a 36 caliber. And since the bores on these pistols, the actual tip of the barrel, the hole at the end measured 357 100,000ths of an inch, they decided to call it 357. But they wanted to give it a powerful name, Magnum. It's a marketing thing. And there you go. And in 1955, they did the exact same thing with the 44 Special, and they got the 44 Magnum. Questions, additions, concerns? Captain Tangent is now back on kit models. I just thought I would cover that for you because somebody made the mistake of asking. And don't forget, I had the other channel, Captain Max's Fun with Guns. Wheel guns are fun. The best part about what they call wheel guns, they slow you down. You go to the range, you just don't shoot as much ammo. They make you think about your shot. Ruger Security 6. I had one of those. Everybody had one of those. They're differently one from Lands, the other grew. That's just true. Yeah, if somebody packs... rule number 1. If somebody breaks into your house, shoot them with the cheapest gun you got because the police have to take it by law. Hey, you know what, Slugo? It'll do the job. Yeah. Oh, that was funny. Anyway, and just as a quick aside, between this big N frames and the small K frames, Smith & Wesson came up with the L frame much later, and that's basically their answer to the Python, which came out in 1955 from Colt. This is true. LS did do something. They did Luger and a couple of others. And I've never been able to find one. If you guys, some people, if you ever watch like old episodes of I Dream of Jeannie, Major Nelson has his pistols up on his wall. I always tell people, if you want to display a gun on the wall, go buy an LS kit or one of the 1-to-1 scale and paint it up, make it look good, and put that up on the wall. The nice thing is, if it comes in halves, you can make 2 of them, set them opposite directions, and make a pair. Hey, you know what? Security 6 is actually, I mean, it's not a pretty gun, but it works. Clearing a jam and we'll pull the trigger again. Just picked up a Japanese T-26 World War II revolver. Man, you shouldn't be shooting something like that. That just needs to be cleaned and put under glass and displayed. That's too valuable to shoot. I have back there a Smith & Wesson triple lock, which is basically the predecessor to the this gun, but it has the shroud over the ejector like the 38-44. And I went out and shot about 50 rounds, so 44 special through it. My brother, the gun maker, was kind of like, don't shoot that anymore, it's too valuable. There you go, 12 gauge Mossberg. That's all you need. It will do the job. It's cheap, and it's, it's just, yeah, good job. Yeah, I have noticed that calibers, like what they say, oh, this gun's a Ford, blah, 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 and it's actually this. I have no idea. The gun calibers are so messed up. There's never been a true international standard. Just like there's never been a true international standard on kit models, I mean, what was it? The scale war, I forget, it was the Russians wanted 1 to 40, the Japanese wanted 1 to 50, we wanted 1 to 48, and through weight of numbers, we managed to win. I actually carried a PPKS as my backup pistol when I was a police officer. Conky. Max Conky. I do have a 1911 back there. They have 100 different gun kits. I didn't realize that. I do know they made the M16. But if you want a display gun, those LS kits are so valuable now. I don't know if I'd want, but you know what? They are the perfect thing to have up there. Also, replica models. They made the working replicas that don't shoot real bullets. Those are another thing. Yes, Michael, you're actually, Elmer Keith was the driving force behind the 44 Magnum. You are correct. That is absolutely correct. I'm not sure if he had any involvement in the 38 to 37. I think that was kind of before his time. But Elmer Keith was I actually did a video on him on the Fun with Guns channel. Well, the P1 and P38 are basically the same thing. You guys may be familiar with the Walther P38 pistol that the Germans came out with in 1938. After the war, the P1 was just kind of an updated variant of the gun. I actually had a P1 that I bought for like $200 when the Germans unloaded all of them in the 80s. Why I didn't keep that thing, even came with a holster. Atlantis has the molds for all the pyro guns. Oh, Steve, they have got to consider putting those back into production. Even if it's a 500 of each. I mean, tell Pete and Rick, run 500 of each of the guns, put them together in a pack, and sell them as a batch. And don't listen to me, I'm an idiot. Oh my gosh. I don't have any wall space left, but if I did, and I was still single, I'd put those pyro guns up all over the house. Wow, all of a sudden, we just became Max's models and Captain Max's Fun with Guns all in one. And 34 Rusty Beretta taken from North Africa. POW. Okay, you need to keep that. You need to keep it clean. Anything taken from a POW in any war has a special value. 38 was originally... Okay, I wasn't going to get into this, Geek Gnome, but since you brought it up, that is correct. 36 caliber was the favorite caliber during the American Civil War. But these were cap and ball pistols that you had to put the powder into the cylinder and then crank down the powder and then put the balls in and crank it in and put the wax or the wadding on them. The chambers in the cylinder were bigger than the barrel. And there's, of course, a forcing cone right here that squishes the bullet down. And you put a ball in there. So when you closed a cap, and of course you had to put the percussion caps on back because they didn't have metal case cartridges yet. Now, the chamber area of the cylinder was roughly 38, whereas the barrel bore was about 36. This was done on purpose because when the powder went off, and this was black powder, and accelerate a certain pace, they wanted the ball to seal up against the barrel, so it went to the forcing because it was deliberately a little bit larger. I used to shoot black powder. And it would get a tight seal, and you get a nice accurate round flying out the barrel. Which is why when the 38 came out, it had a 38 caliber case and a 36 caliber projectile, because a lot of the guns were later converted. Which is one of the reasons... Oh, God, I can't believe I'm going to go here with this. That's one of the reasons Custer got his ass kicked. After the American Civil War, where they were using the muzzle-loading rifles, single-shot rifles, now the metallic case, and a lot of them were copper. A lot of the metallic case had come out, and everybody said, oh, we need metallic case rifles. The American Army / Union Army at this point was not about to throw away, a couple of million rifles? So, they said for like $3 a rifle, they were able to cut the breech out, put a firing pin on it, turn the breech into a trap door where you could put in one of these newfangled metallic cases, close the trap door, cock the rifle, okay? And this is where the trapdoor Springfield was born, which is what Custer's boys were carrying when they got their asses kicked. A bunch of Indians that were carrying repeaters. Man, I have really managed to synopsize a whole bunch of information because there is so much more to that story. I'm reading the comments. Build that model, make my day. Oh my God. I think we have a new motto. You think I'm fun now? Let me have one more of these. I'm going to get downright entertaining. Okay, I got to take a second. My father. Oh, Steve. No. Look, oh my god. Excuse me, I'm gonna need a good cry. Um Okay, Slugo, take care, brother. Thanks for joining us. The trapdoor. Well, you got to remember the trapdoors were a modification of an existing rifle. Well, I was bringing that up, Steve, is that the Indians had repeaters and Custer's guys had single shot trapdoors. And by the way, I don't know if this is true, but some sources are claiming, and by the way, about 20 years ago, they went by metal detectors and found all the empty shell casings and everything. And a lot of the rounds back then were made of brass or copper. And apparently Custer's guys, contrary to myth, did not run out of ammunition. What was happening was they were overheating the guns from so much use. And apparently one of the reasons they got away from brass and went to copper was, got away from copper and went to brass was as they were trying to open up the trapdoor, and it was peeling the guns got so hot the rounds were swelling, the cases were swelling, and they were peeling the back of the bullets off of the case. And so now you had this spent case up in the chamber, and the guys are they didn't have proper tools for it. And the guys were with their knives trying to get the damn things out. And they believe that a lot of the cavalry were down to their pistols and saved the last round for themselves. So they said there were an inordinate number of skull wounds. So probably they didn't want to. Obviously, they didn't want to get taken by the Indians alive. And I wouldn't. I mean, that's just something I've been told. So by some Western historians. So take that for what it's worth. But oh well. Yeah, and they knew that the Indians would not. If the Indians took you alive, they wouldn't necessarily kill you before they dismembered you. A lot of stories came out of that, probably most BS, but I'm sure some of them were true. And look, you look at it from the Indians' point of view, there's no love lost of the cavalry, especially Custer. He hated the friggin' Indians. The things he did to them, I mean, it's... Yeah, Klingons are not a bad analogy, actually. What if the Indians had paratroops jumping from zeppelins carrying people? Well, there's actually a story not too far from that called the Guns of August, where somebody goes back in time and gives the Confederacy AKs, and but apparently at some point the Confederacy realizes they aren't really their friends. But anyway, yeah, Custer left the Gatlings behind because he thought it'd slow him down. I tell you what, that's just one of them decisions that he'll never live down. But Custer had problems with desertion, a lot of other stuff, because Custer had this, depending on who you want to believe, he really saw himself as, I think he thought he was going to be president someday, and this is going to be his. People forget that General Custer was actually Lieutenant Colonel. He'd been a temporary rank of general, but he was breveted back to Lieutenant Colonel. He was actually like Colonel when he died. You gotta have some fun with that. There's a diorama for you. A bunch of Indians charging with AKs and a little Klingon ship in the background, making a time travel, phasing out. Tarbus. But anyway, we are having way too much fun. Then Little Bighorn National is run by the Indian Nation. Tell me that's not absolutely perfect. I saw Twilight Zone, the last tank at the last stand. Okay, no one ever explained to me why they didn't take the tank with them. There's an episode of Twilight Zone called The Last Stand where a Stewart, a crew of a Stewart light tank, M5 or M3, they're like National Guard and they're out on like exercise. They get lost. They wind up rolling in the middle of Custer's Last Stand. Well, they wind up taking their carbines and pistols and running into the battle. I'm like, you got a perfectly serviceable tank behind you. Why didn't you take that? And yes, that's what I was pointing out. Custer's boys were still fighting with trapdoors. One of the reasons that Reno and Benteen had survivors was because they got their asses behind cover. And it was Captain Max's Fun with Guns. I don't even know if it's, I think it's still up. I kind of got shadow banned. The 7th is made up of Phantoms. Thank you, Tabby. That's it. Oh, the tank broke down? Oh, okay. I missed that part. All right. Ha! Said the whole nuclear nitrix. You never know what you're going to do that's going to lead to something unexpected. Oh, really? Okay. There's your thing where they attach me. You know, how do you connect this actor all the way through this movie? There you go. The tank was made by GM on a recall. Sure wasn't Kia. Are we having fun or what? Okay, real quick, just type wire in. Have any of you guys seen what is it, Stug or whatever his name's, where he took Girls in Panzer and revoiced them? And God, it was freaking hilarious. And it's the Girls in Panzer Abridged or something like that. I haven't laughed that hard in a long time. Oh, the Honda tank. Yeah, you know, eventually I remember I actually had the comic book where they went from a Stuart to a Sherman. And the guy makes a comment, now we can roll it out with the heavies. I was like, yeah, sure you can. That was the one I was talking about. I think it was called The Guns of August, but I'm not sure. Oh my God, the things we share. You think about it, 50 years ago, somebody came up with the idea with a comic book, printed it, it got distributed around, and now, 50 years later, we're all here together talking about it. I mean, the universe has a way, right? Huh. .37 millimeter was a Tiger, a rear critical hit, perhaps. Actually, Raymond, you may probably already know this, but that is absolutely correct. And I've seen it covered by several people, including Lance Geiger, the history guy, I believe. There is one incident known of a 37 millimeter taking out a Tiger. And that was an American armored car that was in a defilated camouflage position. And they saw Lone Tiger by himself with no infantry support roll down the road. And they thought, well, there's an arrogant bastard. And they drove out from their position, got up right up behind him, pumped 3 37 millimeter rounds in the back of the engine compartment, which caught fire. The crew bailed out, and the armored car crew went back to their position. The guy wound up getting, I think the commander got the Legion of Merit or the Silver Star. So, yes, a 37 millimeter has taken out a Tiger. The rear end is still completely delicate. I'll take your word for it, John. Guns of the South, somebody told me about it. I've never read it. The T-34 Tiger. You got to give Kelly's Hero credit. At least they tried. You know, they didn't just slap paint on a T-34 and call it a Tiger. Get loud. Okay. Sorry, leaning back. Well, guys, it's going on. Oh, it's a little after 9 p.m. I promised the wife I'd be wrapping this up around then. So I'm going to leave the comment section up while you guys chat amongst yourselves. And they'll give you about 10 minutes to say your goodbyes and whatever you want to talk about. But, yeah, the Ghost of Stewart was with them. But they did later get a Sherman. And I think it was the Brits that gave it the name Sherman. Sergeant Rock, Men in War, Unknown Soldier. Yeah, oh yeah, those are the comic books I used to read. And Sergeant Fury, don't forget Sergeant Fury. By the way, they were talking about a 30 years ago, they were talking about making, I think it was Sergeant Rock with Schwarzenegger. And they were going to say, well, he was an Austrian that immigrated to cover the accent. But Schwarzenegger actually had the look in Predator. I was thinking he'd make a perfect Sergeant Rock. Although they never explained why Sergeant Rock was always carrying a couple of bandoliers of freaking 50 cal ammo. Yes, absolutely. She must be, she, as the great Rumpole of the Bailey used to say, she who must be obeyed. Well, guys, I want to thank everyone, as usual, for checking in. I hope you had some fun, and that's all that really matters. We got off with some... We got away from models. What the heck? This is a free-for-all. Have fun with it. Take care of yourselves, guys. And as always, I hope to see some of you guys maybe down in January at the model cars contest. And take care of yourselves. And always, model on.